La petite mort. This phrase, meaning the little death, is an old-school French euphemism for orgasms. But what happens when our pursuit of these little deaths results in the big one? Around the globe, thousands die each year from these autoerotic fatalities, and those are just the ones where the family let the coroner put that down on paper. So how does the five-finger shuffle turn deadly? Today, we're talking about masturbation and all the ways the Grim Reaper might catch you with your pants down. We'll explore the famous cases from the medical journals and how you can avoid a similar fate. This episode is not for the squeamish, so buckle up because that's what you're in for today on Impolite Society.
Oh, I just detest rude, unladylike young ladies.
I hope you don't mind me being a tad rude.
I myself am strange and unusual.
Don't be rude.
That is some weird, wild stuff.
Shocking, isn't it?
It's a scandal!
But it's provocative.
Please stop making me blush.
This is Impolite Society. I'm Rachel, and over there we got little Laura B.
Yo!
LL Bean. I don't know why that came to my head, but it did.
LB. Those are my initials, and I didn't realize that LB stood for pounds until I was in 5th grade.
Oh, man. That is a fun set of initials to have.
I'm fat. Okay, let's go into the episode.
Oh, my goodness. But I do have a very heavy question for you to get us started. Laura, what percentage of people do you think masturbate?
Literally 100% or 99.9% of people. Because if anybody says they don't, they're fucking lying.
And that is what the old saying is, right? 99% of people will say they masturbate, and the 1% is lying. But it's not quite that strong, but the truth is most people masturbate, and there wasn't really a good study to find this metric. I think the most recent one was from like 2018, but they found that
it at least doubled during COVID.
That's what I was going to say. And actually they have some, but a lot of their sex questions, I want to say it's called Tanga is the place that does the research, but a lot of their questions in their recent surveys were related to COVID. I think their most recent one was 2021. So I'm like, I just want to know what's happening in normal times. So in the 2018, 2019 range, not rank, about 8 to 9 out of 10 masturbated in their lifetime. So that's across ages, generations, genders. When you get real specific, like looking at men, it's more like 95% of men have masturbated.
And again, that other 5% and that 10 out of 10th person is lying, because I feel like even just like accidentally you're in the shower and you're like maybe cleaning it a little too hard and you're like,
Yeah, I really need to get that spot clean. It's feeling it needs a little extra
dirty.
Attention. It is dirty.
Dirty.
Yes.
Dirty.
And I think some of these surveys too, they were asking them face to face. So that's also going to influence the results a bit. But okay, can you have too much of a good thing? I think we all of us, 90% of people who have masturbated know that it's not the worst thing in the world, but can you have too much of that good thing? Always, right? And so the question we're going to be tackling today is, can you masturbate yourself to death? Now, if you type that little phrase into Google, you are not only going to end up on some kind of list, but you're going to see 1,000 sensational news stories with the headlines, "Man dies after masturbating X number of times in a row." And I let my eyeballs and browser history take the hit for this one because I clicked on that story and it is like some early 2000s level urban legend Snope nonsense.
Wait. And you're not clicking on this in incognito mode. Has Impolite Society taught you nothing Rachel, you have to put your browser in incognito mode. What kind of advertisements are you going to get about, the anti-death masturbation secret? You don't even know. You have taken your internet life into your own hands.
Yeah, I'm going to get a lot of ads that say, "You lonely?
You
Call
lonely?
this number."
1-900.
Before you start jacking off to death. Yes, no, Laura, I did use incognito mode for my browser, but I cannot use it for my eyes. Unfortunately, my eyes will retain the information I read.
Never forget.
And now you won't either, because here it comes. Because this is all so phony. Phony. And it's the same story, literally verbatim. Parts of it are copy and pasted, but the details are always different. Sometimes it's a teen, sometimes it's an older man, sometimes it's in the US, it's in South America, it's in Japan. And the number of times varies as well. 42, 46, 58. Always even for some reason. But in some of the details, among the details that are consistent throughout are some of my favorite, which is a quote from a insert investigator here that is present in every single one of these stories. And it reads, "That investigator told reporters the young man was on his bed. His penis was detached from his body. It must have been
fucking hell.
So intense. It came off his body. We found his penis gripped in his left hand so tightly we couldn't get it out. It was tragic."
That has to be a lie. You cannot literally pull your penis off from masturbating. You can't pull your clitoris off from masturbating. Who is reporting this? Is this like the freaking National Enquirer? Where did these come from?
It's not reputable sources. I think one was called the Pakistani Today or whatever. So who knows? But yes, unless this same instance is happening in all these different locations to all these different men with one investigator who just repeats the same line over and over and over.
Epidemic. We don't even know about it. Just penises flying out of hands left and right.
Yeah, they're not flying. They're locked firm in the hand. But that's needless to say, I don't think anybody can take this report seriously, right?
No.
But yet, in case we were concerned about the fact if we could masturbate ourselves to death, which, based on the number of questions on Reddit, suggests that people sure are concerned about if they can masturbate themselves to death. So let's just set the record straight. You absolutely cannot masturbate yourself to death just by sheer repetition alone. And that comes from Planned Parenthood, a source I trust fully, doing the Lord's work.
I mean, because literally just the act. I mean, maybe you could get a rash, some chafing, you're a little sore. I mean, if you're really going at it, maybe you can cause some bleeding, if you're, really going at it tight or really, DJing real fast, real dry. I could see how maybe you could rip some skin. But, I mean, literally the act of orgasm cannot kill you. I mean, maybe if you're like on your deathbed and you're almost dehydrated. I mean, nonsense.
Yeah,
Fucking
it's a
nonsense.
part in the horse situation where if, you only masturbated for 92 hours straight, you might die. I mean, just
Heart
video
rate.
games or
Yeah, exactly. You do anything too much.
podcasting. We're going to see us on our 92-hour stream here.
Then we just...
And then we die.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. As you said, there is an inherent risk, right, at times when it comes to masturbation and sex. A man in Japan nearly died after having a brain aneurysm after masturbating. And there's nothing to say that the masturbating caused the aneurysm, but the man described it as a thunderclap headache immediately after finishing. So there seems to be some connections there.
What is a thunderclap headache?
Well, bam! Hit him that fast.
Like, okay, so out of nowhere, absolutely came. I mean, yeah, because there's all kinds of brain chemistry going on in that moment.
Exactly.
Your vascular system is probably very dilated. There's a lot of hormones running around. I mean, yeah, again, like you said, cart before the horse situation.
Truly. Because sexual excitement has known to raise blood pressure and heart rate, plus all the things that you said. So if there's an underlying issue, that sexual excitement can turn deadly. And this is proven in very many cleverly titled listicles about famous and historical figures who have died whilst getting some action.
That's immediately what I thought of. You know, see that story about like the old man dying on top of his young, hot trophy wife? I mean, if you're a dude, you're kind of, if you want to be, you can be very passive in this situation. You know, there's a lot of cardiovascular exercise when you're the one doing the thrusting. So,
and yeah. When you're sexually excited, you do kind of lose track of other external stimuli, so you might not be as keyed into the signals your body are giving you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we learned that at some point in our research, that your pain sensitivity goes down.
Yeah.
You can't hear as well.
I think the sex sounds episode.
Yeah. So there is a lot of physiological responses that could make it easier to die. But I also just want to point out that this is our first time talking about the connection between sex and death. And I think it might say something that our first inclination was to talk about masturbation and death as opposed to actually regular sex and death.
Well, one happens more than the other, even when you're in committed, loving relationships. That's all I'm going to say about the topic.
And certainly is more exciting. Anyways, but just kidding. And, you know, this is the case, right? When sex is deadly, it's linked to the more exciting sex, right? More exciting sex gets all of those things we talked about pumping higher. It elevates it, so it can be even more deadly. And since the dawn of sex, we've been looking for ways to make it more intense. I bet even us proto-humans were getting freaky with whatever resources were available at the time. We did invent tools after all. But these aids can bump up AIDS. So that was a bad choice of phrase. These tools, these mechanisms, assistance, not HIV/AIDS. These can bump up arousal a bit too much, and this is
wait. We have to go back to proto-humans and what resources that they may have had in order
to achieve orgasm.
Yeah, like rock dildos. That's like the only thing I can
they had access to some of the things we will be talking about later on this list.
Oh, okay. You're gonna drop some knowledge.
Today's versions of these are genetically engineered, so they're a little bit bigger and probably more exciting than the ones of the past. But
OMG, I have so many questions. All right,
we'll
I can't wait
to it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, I think there was probably somebody like rubbing two sticks together on top of a clitoris, you know, like
try to start a fire. Is that what was happening?
Just getting the friction and the heat, baby. That's all you need. Starting some kind of fire. But when we talk about those rubbing sticks togethers and the causing a little too much excitement, more excitement than the poor human body can handle, one case is of a British nanny. I don't know why that was relevant. She's British. Her name is Nicola Peggington, and she died at the tender age of 31. She was found in her bed with a sex toy and a laptop loaded with pornography nearby. The pathologist determined she had likely died from a sudden heart arrhythmia brought on by her heightened state of excitement.
Okay, with a name like Nicola
Peggington.
Paggington? That's so close to Peggington. So many thoughts. And when you talked about laptop, I was a little bit like thrown back. I thought it was going to be earlier in lifetime, but again, this is a cart or a horse situation. You cannot be a 100% healthy human being with like a good cardiovascular system and die because you were excited about porn.
Well, not, maybe porn, not just porn, right? But sometimes the orgasms can be even more intense than your run-of-the-mill one. And this is the case.
What kind of pornography?
Well,
Give
this
me that
isn't just,
link.
it isn't just the pornography. What I'm going to tell you is the story of a man who met his end when he amped up his self-pleasuring with a little bit more unusual of a tool. A 57-year-old was found slumped over his vacuum, locked in a lover's last embrace. And I like that face you're making, Laura. That pretty much sums up the face I made.
He fucked his vacuum?
Yes, because the suction engorges your member, which makes the orgasm more intense. And I learned about this through the chapter on the clitorises when I was learning about clitorises for the Clit episode, reading Mary Roche's book, and she mentioned that this man had died. And granted, she was a lot more tactful than the report in the medical journal I found was, because that's where she left it. This man was having a tryst with his vacuum, and he died. And apparently it wasn't the first time that had happened, too. His wife had walked in on him before.
Oh, okay. So
But
it
this
was
was
an
the time.
ongoing affair, is what you're
Yes.
saying.
But this was when he bit the big one. And what I found from the report on it was just, oh my gosh. Do you want to read this one?
I 100% want to read this one. I'm going to do this in my reporter's voice.
Ooh.
The decedent was naked, leaning against a dining table with his feet on the floor. His testicles, thighs, and buttocks were tightly bound with pantyhose. The areas in direct contact with the vacuum cleaner's beater bar, his abdomen, parts of his chest, and arms showed some burn marks. A bottle of wine, some food items, a jar of lubricant, a glass of urine, and a wooden table leg. Oh. And
Laura hasn't read this
I'm
yet.
reading this live. And a wooden table leg laden with fecal material were on the dining room table.
So yeah,
This evening, Channel 5, tune in at 8 p.m.
Yeah, more like 11 p.m. Bow, 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 bow. He really made an evening of it. He had the drinks, he had the the entree, and for an appetizer, he had a little bit of sodomy with a table leg.
Oh, jeez Louise. Burn marks. Where did the burn marks come from?
Well, because he was leaning against the vacuum, I think it was running. So he'd been leaning on a hot vacuum for a while.
Did they say what year this was?
No.
Because I feel like my vacuum doesn't get this hot. So I feel like this is earlier.
This is definitely. A lot of the publications were from like the 80s and such.
Okay. All
so
right.
yeah, this is probably pretty old.
A wooden table leg. Can't you find a cucumber a little bit more forgiving?
Yeah, I mean, that was a detail in the glass of urine and just...
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I'm just going to ignore that one.
What a way to be found.
What does his obit say? Poor man.
None of that, probably. He died at home, surrounded by loved ones and his favorite activities.
Sorry, that really got me. Surrounded by family members and his favorite activities.
There you go. But again, this kind of harkens back to what you were saying, the cart and the horse. Because were these deaths caused by masturbation, or were they caused by an underlying health issue that manifested during masturbation?
Yeah.
If it wasn't in the throes of solo passion, it could have been a long flight of stairs or a momentary scare that sent them over the edge.
Scared to death.
That's what I felt like reading some of these medical journal articles. Well, abstracts. I didn't spring for the full articles. So you're getting the summarized version, baby. This is the TikTok of autoerotic deaths. But at the heart of it, should you be worried about being caught dead with your pants down? Like, okay, let's look at the numbers, right? There's people whacking it all day, every day. Every time some undies get creamed, an angel gets their wings. And when somebody dies in that way, it's apparently exciting enough to make Yahoo News, R.I.P. Nicola. So it's rare enough. So odds are you're not going to be one of the ones to die during the deed.
God, I hope not.
it makes you second guess. This whole week I've been like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. Because can you imagine being caught? And it's just like the most like vulnerable moment of your life.
You know,
worse than pooping.
Maybe, totally. Maybe it's just this moment of like, you know, maybe I'm not feeling so good tonight. I'm feeling, you know, a little bit of pressure in the chest. I got some heartburn. I'm not feeling at my best. Maybe I should just leave this for later. Because if that is the moment that your life is going to bite it, I would rather it be me alone in my bed than me with a freaking vibrator down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's just err on the side of caution. I'm not feeling great tonight. Let's let it pass. Let's let it pass.
Before you decide to do something like that.
Yeah.
And that's
you'll
fair.
regret forever.
Yep, your spirit will be wandering around your house, pants around your ankles. Just why, universe? So that's some pretty good advice around there. But what we really want to look at when it comes to dying during masturbation is what I talked about, I threw out earlier, which is autoerotic death. This is death that is caused due to a failure of a device or an unexpected effect of said device or materials that's being used to enhance sexual experience.
So autoerotic asphyxiation is immediately what comes to mind because I feel like there has been at least several celebrities who've died this way. I can think of one definitively, but so that's what comes to mind. Men who are choking themselves while they choke the chicken.
Yeah, and it's not just men. Women partake in this one as well.
Truly?
Or people who accidentally asphyxiate themselves while partaking in self-bondage or something like that. And I will just preface this by saying I did not include that topic because I don't want anybody to be encouraged or interested in it and start researching it.
The details. I don't need the deets. I don't understand it, and I don't want to. I don't want to play in this world. Let's just pass.
I will just say if you were considering it, don't, because I read way too many stuff about it. It's dangerous. Like, I'll just say that. And it is definitely the biggest leading cause of autoerotic deaths, but it's not all of them. It doesn't account for all of them. And these kind of deaths are more prevalent than you might expect, with some articles I found citing that over 100 Germans die each year.
Of course they do. Fucking Germans. Who knows? They're doing all kinds of weird shit. God bless those Germans.
Shit. But it could be as many as thousands of Americans, right?
Ugh.
Yeah, because people aren't always keen to have that written down on the death cert. So back in the day, people would cover up suicides to make sure that people looked more honorable in death. And in these cases, people will say, oh, it was suicide, so that they don't have autoerotic death added to it.
Yes, and that is interesting in and of itself. Like, which is more shameful, that you chose to opt out of your life on purpose, or you erroneously died or accidentally died while masturbating? I don't know. There's some sort of sociology going on there of like which is the most shameful.
Yeah. I'm sure when they made up that suicide rule, they had no idea what was in store, you know?
Truly.
With the shame around suicide, they were like, oh, yeah, by the way, people are going to eventually accidentally kill themselves while jacking off. And they'll be like, oh, well, we hadn't even considered that. That is more embarrassing. But okay, sorry. We're getting off track.
Okay.
R.I.P., folks. So what are some of the ways that you might kill yourself during masturbation? Well, let me tell you. So what do you think of, right? Because people are pursuing these more intense sexual experiences. What do you think of when you hear intense paired with sexual?
A good orgasm? I don't know.
Yeah, but what makes sex more intense?
But I mean, I'm a woman, so psychological.
Yes, people are dying from psychological masturbation.
Exactly. I'm trying to think.
Gosh,
bigger penises? That's what I'm thinking. Okay.
It's literally written in the notes.
All right.
No.
Okay. I haven't
America.
watched.
Bigger and more vigorous. Bigger and harder. That is what people are doing.
Anuses. This is what it's all about. Because it's not about a vagina. A vagina is meant.
You're gonna find out something different.
I can't fucking
But you
wait.
are spot on with the first one, because you know what happens when you mix big and vigorous? You will break your fucking insides, people.
Yeah.
This is a case of poor Nigel Willis, who at 50 died from a vibrator being trapped in his anus. Now, this is not an unusual occurrence. Ask any ER doctor. They will tell you about all the things they pull out of people's asses.
I've seen it on TikTok.
Exactly. But Nigel's fatal flaw was shame.
They wait.
Yes, he was too embarrassed to go to hospital because he was also British, by the way. Another one.
Poor Nicola and Nigel.
Yes.
Hospital, depending
To
on where they're from.
hospital. So he spent 5 days languishing on his mother's couch because he lived with his mother. Another theme we're going to see throughout the episode. He felt dizzy, weak, and unable to move before he was finally encouraged by a friend to get help. And surprise, surprise, Nigel was septic. The vibrator had perforated his bowels, and that good, juicy poo bacteria was leaking into his body.
That is super fucking sad. And, like, I get it. Sex is shameful in general. It's like regular sex is shameful in general.
But it's not worth your life.
It's not worth your life. Just, like, go to the doctors. Like you said, the ER doctors have seen it 1,000 fucking times. Just go. And what did it say what he used?
It was a vibrator. It was like meant for sexual enjoyment. So I just,
what did he do with it? I mean,
it
an
got
odd
stuck
angle, or
and it moved up. So
I guess it wasn't an anal vibrator, because anal vibrators are specifically, or any anal toy
is shaped so that it doesn't.
Exactly. Your anus is a vacuum. It's got to have a wide base so the whole thing can't go up there. So he probably used just like a regular sex toy, which wasn't meant for anal play, and it got sucked in there. And then, yeah. I mean, but what? Why? Okay. So many questions about like how it perforated.
Questions.
He was just, I guess, just going to town a little bit too hard, because
I think it
like
just was
being
that
backed
deep in
up.
there. It was like, yeah, working in, and homegirl
to
did not
perforate
spring for the
something.
subscription, so I'm just working from the abstracts here.
Woof.
Yeah, if anybody wants to support us or sponsor us so that I could actually get access to these medical journals, that would be great.
They're really fucking expensive, guys. If you go into these articles and try to subscribe, they're like $150 to read this article, please.
Yeah, we just need to get on LexisNexis or some kind of like college email just to get back in there. Yeah, let's do it. We're going to sign up for the community college just so we can read about anal perforations. Anyways, we laugh, but poor Nigel, he eventually succumbed to the infection over a month after being admitted to the hospital.
Oh.
So here's where we learn about a woman. So another case includes a 40-year-old woman who decided to use a vegetable to aid her sexual delight.
Probably a cucumber.
Hang tight. So she was no newbie to vaginal care, though. So when she took her tool of choice, a carrot, she knew she didn't want that germy, bacteria, dirt-covered outside all up in her cooch. So she did the rational thing, and she peeled it.
Acid.
Oh, okay. Laura's taking blind guesses. I don't know what happened. Is there a lot of acid in carrots? I don't know. I'm not a cook. I'm not a scientist.
I mean,
a
every
cooking
vegetable
scientist.
has acidic.
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay, but what else happens when you peel a carrot on its small end?
Oh, it gets pointy.
It gets pointy to the point where the carrot acted as a syringe, and in her thrusting, it displaced a significant amount of air, and the point broke the wall of her vagina. So where did that air go? It went into her bloodstream, resulting in a fatal air embolism, aka a little air bubble forced through the tip of the carrot. It went into her bloodstream and went all the way to her heart. What's up, Doc?
see my face right now because
we got to do a video recording of these episodes, except for the fact that we look like we just emerged from the mines of Moria, but it's fine.
She did the masturbatory equivalent of injecting an air bubble into her IV.
Yeah, unintentionally.
From a fucking carrot in your vagina. I have birthed 2 whole human beings out of my vagina, and neither of them have perforated a vaginal wall. What was this carrot made of? How hard was she going at it? This is insane to me. Where do they get these carrots? Is this another UK woman? Or we don't know?
No, I don't know. That was not listed in the abstract.
What do they make carrots of in this planet? That is bonkers.
Well, it just takes an angle, right? You know, and it's pointy and it's pushed
that deep. Oh, that's crazy.
In a medical journal.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. You read it. It's in a medical journal. It's cited. I believe it. I am flabbergasted.
That one is wild. That's probably one of the more wild ones in here, just for the fact that it happened. The rest of them are pretty wild in their own sense. But like the mechanism of death this is the most wild. But a theme I'm seeing here on top of the Brits is that you could not trust vegetables, man. They are out to get you, and do not invite them. Whatever you do not invite them into your bedroom activities, because they are after us and they are striking when we're most vulnerable. And another veggie strike comes in the form of a zucchini. To his neighbors, this 20-something man looked completely normal. He lived in a house with his wife. He enjoyed gardening in his backyard, including growing zucchinis.
Oh, it was homegrown. How sweet.
Yeah, organic.
Crunchy.
Then one day, a neighbor heard pounding at their door, and there was this 20-something man, pants down, semi-erect penis with a rubber band around its base, desperately seeking help from the zucchini lodged in his throat. Unfortunately, the man was not saved because the zucchini that he was deep-throating to amp up his arousal had completely blocked his larynx and... what's that word? Pharynx?
I have no idea what that word.
It blocked all the breathing bits. And this one was also
I have to look that up.
Mentioned in Mary Roche's book that I found, again, cited in many different places. They don't know if he was intentionally trying to cut off his breathing or if he really just enjoyed the sensation of sucking cock. So I tend to believe the second one because there's so many more simple ways to do breath play. No, don't do it though, folks. But I mean, like, he had to have just liked the feeling of choking on cock.
Yeah, I'm seriously flabbergasted. Okay. So that is like the whole like back part of your throat. It's before you get to the esophagus. So it's just the entire back of his throat was clogged. It's not just the esophagus. The esophagus doesn't start until your lower, not esophagus,
trachea.
Trachea, thank you. The trachea doesn't start until you're lower down, so it's just the entirety of the top of his throat
is blocked. Nobody could just pull it out. I don't know.
You.
I guess they probably They probably didn't want to touch him. Not gonna lie.
I mean, maybe they tried. I mean, you vacuum, situation. You breathe out. Oh, I don't
Who knows?
Even know.
I just, again, so sad, but, whew, don't trust those veggies. Watch out.
Out to get ya.
But in a theme, right? Because I can't help but find themes and patterns. I'm human. It's what the human brain does. Another one is restricting air, which we talked about at the top.
Autoerotic, yeah.
Yes. And sometimes people get really creative with how they do this. And this includes aqua-erotic death. Now, this isn't just elaborate breath play in this instance that I'm going to talk about. This story is about a 25-year-old man who was found dead under his boat. He had gone for the ever-impressive and elusive underwater wank. And the only problem, his very unusual homemade scuba gear.
That's never a good sentence. Homemade scuba gear.
Yeah, so this included a hockey helmet equipped with a safety grid. And he was wearing all kinds of weird garments like a 2-piece black snowmobile suit and ski boots. And on top of that was like a weird bondage setup. But underneath everything was like a suit, like a wetsuit, right? That was like a latex suit. And he had like bound himself and he had tied himself to his boat so he wouldn't get washed away.
Just spring for the regular scuba outfit. But
At that
this
point,
sounds so specific.
It's very specific.
It sounds like this was part of the kink.
Yeah, something about being underwater and
in this particular getup.
Yeah. Situation. Yes. And so he wasn't going to just jump into the water unprepared. He did rig up his scuba system, which involved a wooden board was floating. And that's what he had attached his electrical cord that tied him to it so he could be found, I guess.
Electrical cord? What is the electrical cord for?
Just he used it as a rope. Essentially.
Oh, okay.
But he also had a long black tube that ran from his mouth to that floating container that,
so he could breathe.
Yeah, which thus created an air supply. Unfortunately, he was not the Rube Goldberg of diving equipment. It did not work out that way. And he did succumb to asphyxiation from rebreathing, right? So that little tube was not circulating air as it should.
So he's breathing all this fucking carbon dioxide.
Yes. Yeah. So this was not an intentional breath play situation, but just a very poorly thought out, yet a very elaborate scenario this man wanted to experience.
Feel like this is kind of a Darwin Awards kind of thing.
Unfortunate.
Sadly.
But true.
Yeah. You had a very specific fetish and you didn't think it out.
Yeah, he did not quite execute perfectly. But again, one of the key parts of it was that he had the full wetsuit on underneath the winter clothes. So he was worried about, obviously, heat, I guess. Maybe that's why he had the winter clothes on. That was probably to help him sink, in all honesty.
Yeah.
The winter clothes was to help him sink. But they had that latex element to it. And speaking of bodysuits, I am sure you're dying to get a little more latex into your life.
No, trying to axe those out with the vasectomy, actually.
Well, I know someone who literally did die to get a little bit more rubber in their life. And that is Mr. Robert Garnett, whose coworkers at a McDonald's in London. Another one.
What the fuck, Brits? Get your shit together.
I don't know if it's some kind of news reporting rule or whatever, but there seems to be a theme, a common denominator across a lot of these stories. But let's just say Mr. Garnett, his coworkers at McDonald's became worried when he didn't show up to work. So they called in a wellness check. And boy, were those coppers in for a surprise, because Robert was found dead, curled up on his own bed in a full body rubber suit with 2 sealable bags on the floor containing a white powdery residue and a third bag of that on the bedside table.
Cocaina!
Yes. So the postmortem found that the rubber suit had actually caused him to overheat, and that was a contributing factor to his death, of course, in conjecture with the drugs in his system that paired together ultimately killed him.
So he didn't suffocate in his rubber suit. He literally overheated, and the cocaine
not
didn't
very
help.
breathable.
Yeah, I've worn some pleather pants in my life. Those super shiny vinyl ones. Whoo!
Yeah,
it gets hot in there.
That is a yeast infection just waiting to happen.
I remember I used to wear them to work. I worked at a record store, so that's why I was wearing fucking pleather pants. And every time I would go to the bathroom, I was like, oh, it feels so good. I get air in my skin. Woo.
Yep. It's not.
Poor fucking Robert Garnett.
Yeah, now imagine being so coked up you can't get out of it. Ugh. But let's face it. All these methods are just roundabout ways to add some spark to your solo pleasure. So why not cut to the chase and bring in some real sparks?
Oh, God, this can't be good.
It's not. So that's the mindset of many folks who end up being victims to these autoerotic fatalities involving electricity. And I actually saw this a lot more than I expected in my research, both solo and with a partner. So again, another thing I just encourage you not to try. There's so many other things you can do in this world. Why try to shock people by doing electricity shit? And this is so prevalent that two stories have kind of permeated the zeitgeist, right? Where in my research, I could not find a source to back up this first one, but I saw multiple people on multiple sources mention a man who died by attaching Christmas light wires, like taking the bulbs out of Christmas light wires and attaching them to his nipples, and he electrocuted himself and died. And that was in many places. And another one that very memorable and permeated the zeitgeist is when I was talking about this topic today with my husband, his first response was, "Oh, are you going to talk about the guy who used electricity, who was fucking a pig heart that he electrified?" And I was like, yeah, I had read about that, but I wasn't planning to talk about it. But now I am going to talk about it because this was a guy who was featured on 1,000 Ways to Die, that old TV show. And so I know that they probably fact-checked it. So I have to believe it's true. But this guy bought a pig heart and like wired it up so that it was electrified while he was fucking it. And then eventually he died. He over-electrified.
Good. Because if you're fucking a fucking pig heart, you're a serial killer waiting to happen. I'm glad that Darwin took you out of this situation. I can't even comprehend.
Bunch of random things that happened that led to this. Yeah, a lot of very perverse desires. Yeah. And I'm not one. I try not to be judgy when it comes to sex, but like fucking organs of dead things.
Yeah. Talk about paraphilia. Jesus Christ.
Yes. So while I did not track down sources for either of those stories, I'm confident that at least one of them has happened. One I did find was in a medical journal that covered an autoerotic death involving a 23-year-old man who was found dead in a bathroom with black burns on each nipple. He had an electric item plugged in. What if this is the story of the man who electrocuted himself with the lights?
Christmas lights?
Yeah, it could be. It's on his nipples. He was found dead in a bathroom.
Like it. Yeah.
And he had black burns on each nipple. And it didn't mention what the item was, just that he had exposed the wires. And this is, again, one of many. So I don't know why I picked this one. Maybe because in my heart of hearts, I believe this is the Christmas lights man.
Merry fucking Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho. But this is extra special because normally a fatality like this would have been prevented due to ground fault circuit interrupters.
Yep.
Which it seems like you know more about than I do because I had no idea what that was.
They're built into the wall sockets.
Oh, those like little things that I have to push every once in a while to reset
the whole system is literally led for you to not electrocute yourself.
Yes, and I can understand why that would be the goal. But for some reason, that did not work here because he had wired himself into a parallel circuit to the source, which, whether that was on purpose or not, I don't know. I don't know enough about electricity to make a guess. But this, because of how he had wired it, it bypassed the interrupter, and that's how he received that lethal dose of electricity.
God. People, just be happy with what God gave you.
Yeah.
Why you gotta try to go up and up and up and up? It's good enough where it is. Jesus Christ.
And when you meet that right special person, sparks fly anyways. No,
Aww.
Just kidding. That's such a lie. I mean, I'm sure there's special people out there for everyone, but those sparks, man, they don't last, but from an outlet, they just keep coming.
Choose your poison.
No kidding. So, while we're at it, electricity, electronics, mechanicalness. I have one more story for you. And even if this one is funny. I shouldn't say funny. This one's wild. And it's not.
Oh, it's funny. Let's just throw out all pretense. It's gonna be funny.
And in our hearts of hearts, we know that this is not an autoerotic death. This is maybe more of a lover's quarrel or a crime of passion. And it involves a 42-year-old Japanese man who was found deceased next to his John Deere model JD410, which, if you've listened to the show enough, you can probably guess that backhoe is his love interest. And murderer. Okay, so he bought this. It's so fucking sad. This backhoe that he had was his pride and joy. He bought the tractor for himself as a Christmas gift and was so excited about it that he included it in his annual Christmas newsletter that he sent out.
Oh, those cute ones where it's not just a card. They talk about what their life, like what happened.
In the last year, the year wrap up. Yes, but apparently he and this tractor were spending some extra time together. So his parents, again, he lived with his parents. Theme.
In Japan, too. This is an extra level of weirdness. I guess not in like Tokyo. This is in the countryside.
Yes, it was definitely in the more rural side. And this guy, he was definitely using this tractor for more than just the odd contracting job that everybody thought he was. Because one day, his parents noticed he wasn't in bed. They went out to the shed and they found him hanging from the scoopy part of the backhoe. So what he had done is he had rigged up a system where he made a homemade level that hooked to the hooky thing that he could control the backhoe scoopy thing. Obviously very technical. I think it's called a shovel. I don't know. He could control how high the scoopy thing was remotely, ideally. And then he attached a safety harness to his neck, tied it to like the teeth of the scoopy part, and then it would lower it up and down.
As he goes up and down. Got it.
Yes. So, and this fateful night, he did asphyxiate, and they say it was probably brought on by complications of carbon monoxide intoxication because he was doing it, I guess, in the shed.
In a closed garage.
So he wasn't in full faction. But, you know, some would say maybe this wasn't the worst death for this man because this was not just a random tryst like that man with the vacuum. He wasn't hitting it and quitting it. He loved this tractor. His parents didn't notice he was gone until the morning because he frequently left at night and they could hear the engine running from the shed. And after he died, they went through his belongings and they had found his whole binder journal of love poetry that he had written for his tractor, which he had called Stone. He named his tractor Stone, and he had all this poetry about how he desired for he himself and Stone to soar high together.
I don't even know what to say to that.
There's not a lot to say. That man needed some mental health help.
Therapy.
Yes, but oh my gosh, people, listen, this is why you have to guard your hearts, because this man poured his love into what turned out to be a cold, heartless, unforgiving lover who took his life like it was nothing.
That word bums me out unless it's between meat and pizza.
I love when I see random 30 Rock things pop up here and there. It's great. So, obviously, we kept the theme of this episode, while it was very morbid in theory, we kept it kind of light and breezy. And as I mentioned at the top, there is a real killer when it comes to autoerotic deaths, and that's what we talked about, is that autoerotic asphyxiation. So, like, again, don't do it. I try not to get high and mighty, but, like, just don't do it. There's got to be something else that makes you feel just as good, right? Like, have you ever tried volunteering? That's
really?
a high we can all get behind.
Really? Okay. I mean, I guess my 2 cents on that would be if you need to do that to achieve an orgasm, like, I'm serious, like, see a therapist. Do you know what I mean? Because there's probably something else missing in your life. You know, if
some kind of block or,
Oh, 100%. If you need autoerotic asphyxiation to get you to, quote, the next level of orgasm, you probably have some inner work you need to be doing to either move beyond your need to heighten your sexual pleasure, or you're just, I don't know. There's something going on there. You need to talk to somebody. And then that's real talk. That's not me being glib. That's serious.
Yeah, because we all know the truest, most intense orgasms come from decades and decades of monogamous relationships.
No, it comes from orgasm.
No, I'm kidding.
Orgasm. An orgasm is a fucking orgasm.
And it's not worth your life.
Exactly. That's the point I'm trying to make. If you're trying to achieve that, it's not as great as you fucking think it is. It's a physical feeling, and it's gone in 10 seconds, 15, 30 seconds if you're fucking lucky. It's a passing moment. You need to recenter yourself, find another goal.
Yeah, and really, you don't want to be brought up on a podcast hosted by a couple weirdos like us. My goal in life is to not have anybody podcast about me after I die. In an embarrassing way. Maybe if you talk about how great I am. No, just kidding.
No, you know what? No press is bad press. Maybe I should. No, I was just going to make a joke. No.
Yeah.
Moving on. Go ahead.
So, okay. That's, our anti-asphyxiation campaign. Like volunteering, that is something we can all get behind. And if you want something else to get behind, we have the cause for you. And that is sharing Impolite Society with your friends and your lovers, if you have them, because let's be real, since we all know you clicked on this episode. Just kidding,
You're losers
just
just like us. It's fine.
But seriously, recommendations are the electric shocks to our nipples. So please pass the show on.
And always remember to rate, review us on your podcasting platform of choice. And Spotify has this cool thing where you can answer questions and poll and talk to us and rate us. And so if you're listening on Spotify, do that. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, click that 5 stars. Get us a quick little, hey, you guys are great. There's a character minimum. Just type in some bullshit and hit submit.
Yeah, that's how we can connect with our other weirdos who want to hear about this kind of stuff, who don't have cool friends like you to enlighten them. We all feel bad for them, but we just hope they find us eventually. So always remember, never ever forget, outside of keeping all vegetables away from your genitals, to stay curious and keep marching to the beat of your own drum.
I still don't have the music.
Bum bum,
There
bum
you
bum,
go.
bum bum.
And that is the thumping of vegetables that are coming for our genitalia.
They want you dead.